The morning they put handcuffs on Lily, her husband was standing 10 feet away and said nothing. He watched the officer read her rights. He watched her hands shake. He watched her look at him with eyes that were begging him to say something, anything, to tell them they had the wrong person. And he looked right back at her and looked away. That was when Lily understood something so cold and so final that it felt like the floor had opened up beneath her. This was not a mistake. This was the plan. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. If the one person on earth who was supposed to protect you was the exact person who set you up, what would you do? Not the angry version in your head. The real version. The version where you are scared and alone and have no proof yet. Stay with Lily. Because what she did next took everything she had. And every step of it was worth it. The morning they put handcuffs on Lily, her husband was standing 10 feet away and said nothing. She remembers every detail of that morning even now. The way the light came through the kitchen window at a low angle. The way the coffee she had just made was still steaming on the counter when the knock came at the door. 2 officers, not unfriendly, but serious in a way that made her stomach drop before either of them said a single word. They said there had been a complaint, a financial fraud complaint. They said her name had come up in connection with missing funds from a business account. They said they needed her to come with them. Lily stood there in her own kitchen and tried to make sense of the words. Her name, financial fraud, missing funds. None of it connected to anything real in her mind because she had not touched any business account. She had no access to any business account. She was not even listed on the company paperwork. She had asked to be 2 years earlier, and her husband Marcus had told her it was not necessary. That he handled the business. That she did not need to worry about it. She looked at Marcus then, and he looked back at her with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Not shock, not outrage on her behalf, not the face of a man about to defend his wife. It was something flatter than that, something almost careful, like he was watching to see how she would react. She said his name, just his name, Marcus. He said, "I think you should go with them, and we will get this sorted out." That was all. She went. Lily had been with Marcus for 9 years, married for 6. She had met him when she was 28, when she was working as an office manager for a small accounting firm, and he had come in as a client. He was charming in a way that felt genuine back then, warm and funny and interested in her in a way that felt rare. She had not had the easiest path before him. Her mother had passed when she was 22. Her father had never been reliable. She had a younger sister, Dana, who she was close to but who lived 3 states away. When Marcus came into her life, she had been quietly lonely for a long time, and he felt like the answer to something she had not known how to name. They built a life together, a nice house in a suburb outside the city, a routine that felt stable. Marcus ran a small construction management company. Lily had left her job after their son Caleb was born and became the person who held the household together. She managed the home, managed their finances on the personal side, and raised Caleb while Marcus traveled for work several times a month. Looking back, Lily can point to 100 small moments that she explained away. The times he came home from trips and seemed distracted for days. The way he would end phone calls when she walked into the room. The business accounts she was never added to. The way his mother, Patricia, had always treated Lily with a particular kind of politeness that was really just a very thin shell over contempt. But she did not follow those threads. She was raising a child. She was running a household. She trusted her husband. That is the part she now says with the kind of quiet that holds a lot of pain underneath it. She trusted him, completely, foolishly, with everything. The police station was not what she expected. She had only ever seen interrogation rooms in movies, and she had always assumed those scenes were exaggerated. They were not. A small room, a metal table, a chair that was slightly uneven, so it rocked just enough to keep her off balance without her even realizing it. 2 detectives who were not unkind, but who were also not there to make her feel comfortable. They told her the complaint had been filed by a business partner of Marcus named Glenn Forsyth. They told her that according to documentation they had received, Lily had been listed as an authorized signatory on a business line of credit. They told her that over the past 14 months, approximately $240,000 had been moved out of that credit line, series of transfers, and that the transfers had been authorized under her signature. Lily felt the room tilt. She told them she had never signed anything related to that account. She told them she did not even know the account existed. She told them she had no access to any business accounts. She asked to see the signature. They showed her a document. The signature on that document looked enough like hers that her first reaction was confusion. Her second reaction, which arrived about 3 seconds later, was something much colder, because it was not quite right. She was left-handed. The way she made the capital L in her name had a very specific curve that she had carried since childhood. The signature on that document had the same general shape, but the L was wrong. It curved the other way. It was a very good copy, but it was a copy. She told them this immediately. She said, "That is not my signature. Look at the L, I am left-handed. That is wrong." The detectives exchanged a look that she could not quite read. They told her she could be released on her own recognizance while they investigated further, but that she should not leave the area and should retain legal counsel. They took her fingerprints. They photographed her. They gave her paperwork she could barely read through the shaking in her hands. She called Marcus from the parking lot. He picked up on the second ring. She told him what they had said, about the account, about the signature, about $240,000 she knew nothing about. His response was measured. He told her it was probably a misunderstanding with Glenn. He told her Glenn had always been difficult. He told her he would look into it. He told her to come home and not to talk to anyone about it. She asked him directly. She asked him whether he knew about that account. He said of course he knew about it. It was a business account, but that she must have signed something at some point that she had forgotten about. Maybe a document he had handed her with other papers. Lily went very still on the phone. She thought about all the papers she had signed over the years. Documents Marcus had placed in front of her. Things he said were routine: mortgage refinancing, insurance forms, documents he needed for the business. He had often handed her things to sign while she was making dinner or helping Caleb with homework, and she had trusted him enough that she had not always read every line. She had signed something, she just did not know what. She drove home in a kind of silent fog that was worse than panic. Panic at least has energy in it. What Lily felt was something heavier. Something that was starting to look like the shape of a long, slow truth. When she got home, Marcus was in his office with the door closed. He came out after about 20 minutes. He was calm, almost too calm for a man whose wife had just been questioned by police about financial fraud connected to his own business. She asked him to sit down and talk to her. He said they would talk about it, but that he needed to handle a few calls first. That night, after Caleb was asleep, Lily sat at the kitchen table with the paperwork from the police and started going through what she knew. The account was in the name of Marcus's company. She had been listed as an authorized signatory. According to the police, she had supposedly signed a document adding herself to the account about 16 months ago. 16 months ago. She thought hard about that window of time, and then she remembered. 16 months ago, Marcus had had a period of about 3 weeks where he had been unusually attentive, bringing her coffee in the morning, coming to bed at a reasonable hour instead of staying in his office, complimenting her often. She had noticed it and felt warm about it and had not examined it too closely because it had felt good. And during that period, she remembered him handing her a stack of papers and saying something about updating their financial records and insurance information. She had signed all of them. She had not read them carefully. She had trusted him. That night, Lily did not sleep. She lay in the dark next to her husband and felt the reality of her situation settle over her like something physical. Someone had taken $240,000. Her name was on the account. Her signature, real or forged, was on the authorization. And the one person who could clear her name was lying beside her, breathing slowly, apparently perfectly at rest. She made a decision sometime around 3 in the morning. She was not going to wait for Marcus to handle this. She was not going to sit quietly and trust that everything would be sorted out. She was going to find out exactly what had happened, on her own. The next morning, she called her sister Dana. Dana had always been the sharper one in the family. She had a degree in finance and worked for an auditing company. She was also the one person Lily trusted completely. Lily explained everything. Dana listened without interrupting. When Lily finished, Dana was quiet for exactly 4 seconds, and then she said, "Lily, I need you to get me copies of everything." Every document the police showed you. Every piece of paper you can find in that house related to Marcus's business. Can you do that without him knowing? Lily said yes. Dana said, do it today. That afternoon, while Marcus was out, Lily went through his office. She was not a dramatic person. She had never snooped on her husband before. She had never felt the need to. But she moved through that office with a kind of calm focus that surprised her, like some part of her had been preparing for this without her conscious knowledge. His filing cabinet was locked, but she knew where he kept his keys. He had always been slightly careless about small things. She found the key in the back of his desk drawer under a stack of business cards. The cabinet had 4 drawers. She photographed everything with her phone: business contracts, bank statements, partnership agreements. A thick folder labeled simply GF, which she understood immediately to stand for Glenn Forsyth. Inside the GF folder, she found things that did not make immediate sense. Copies of transfers. Copies of what appeared to be an internal loan structure. And at the back of the folder, tucked behind a stapled document, a handwritten note on a piece of notepad paper. The note was in Marcus's handwriting. She knew his handwriting the way she knew her own. And the note said, in very plain language, that once the account was cleaned out, all documentation pointed to L. L was Lily. She stood in his office holding that note and felt something happen inside her that was not panic and was not grief. It was clarity. The worst kind. The kind that burns everything soft away and leaves only what is real. Her husband had set her up. He had forged, or arranged to forge, her signature on a business account. He had moved nearly $250,000 through that account, and he had arranged the paperwork so that if anyone ever looked, the trail led to her. She photographed the note. She photographed every document in that folder. Then she put everything back exactly as she had found it, locked the cabinet, and returned the key. She called Dana again from the driveway of her own house, sitting in her car, and her voice was very steady when she spoke. Dana was quiet for a moment after she heard everything. Then she said, Lily, you need a lawyer before you do anything else. Not a general lawyer, a criminal defense attorney. Today. Lily already had a name in mind. Years before, a woman in her neighborhood named Carol had gone through a bitter divorce that involved financial disputes, and she had come out the other side with her assets intact. Lily had always remembered the name of the attorney Carol had used. She had filed it somewhere in the back of her mind without knowing why. She called that attorney that same afternoon. His name was David Reyes. He had an office downtown. He took her call himself when she explained in brief what was happening, and he told her to come in the next morning at 8. She went home. She made dinner. She helped Caleb with his reading homework. She spoke to Marcus at the dinner table about ordinary things. And she felt the entire time like she was watching herself from a slight distance, like something inside her had stepped back and become very quiet and very focused. Marcus behaved normally that evening. He watched television, he came to bed, he slept. Lily lay awake again and thought about the note. He had written one letter, just the initial, as if he could not even bring himself to write her name while planning to destroy her life. David Reyes was a compact, careful man with a reputation for being harder to shake than stone. He listened to Lily for 45 minutes without interrupting. He looked at the photographs she had taken on her phone. He asked her specific, methodical questions, and at the end of it, he leaned back in his chair and said something she needed to hear. He said, "This is a serious situation, but it is not hopeless. You have the note. That is significant. What we need to do now is build your case carefully before anyone moves. We need a handwriting expert. We need to trace those transfers. And we need to understand exactly who Glenn Forsyth is in all of this." Because that was a question Lily had been sitting with since the beginning. Was Glenn Forsyth a victim in this too, someone Marcus had used, or was he part of it? David told her to go home, say nothing to Marcus, change nothing about her behavior, and let him start making calls. She went home, she said nothing. 2 days passed. They were the longest 2 days of her life. On the 3rd day, something unexpected happened. Patricia, Marcus's mother, called and asked if she could come by for tea. Patricia had never in 9 years asked to come by for tea. Patricia had all Eyes conducted her relationship with Lily from behind the shield of formal family events, where she was perfectly polite and perfectly cold. An unannounced request for tea was not normal. Lily said yes. She said yes because she had learned in the past week that information could come from any direction. Patricia arrived in the late morning. She was a composed woman in her late 60s who dressed carefully and spoke in a way that felt like every word had been pre-approved. She sat at Lily's kitchen table, accepted the tea Lily placed in front of her, and then looked at her with an expression that was almost, but not quite, sympathetic. She said, "I know this has been a difficult week for you. And I want to be honest with you, Lily, because I think honesty is the only useful thing right now." Lily waited. Patricia said, "Marcus has made some serious mistakes, financial mistakes, and the way he handled those mistakes was wrong. But you have to understand that his family, his real family, is not going to let him go to prison. And I think you know that the smartest thing you could do right now is stand beside him. Let the investigation conclude. Accept that certain decisions were made and move forward." Lily felt something very still inside her as she listened. She asked Patricia very quietly what she meant by stand beside him. Patricia said it would help Marcus's situation enormously if the explanation were that there had been a misunderstanding, that you had actually been involved in the account, but that the business arrangement had simply gone wrong. Marriages go through difficult things. Marcus is prepared to be very generous with you if you are cooperative. Lily looked at her husband's mother sitting in her kitchen asking her to take the fall, to say she had been involved, to protect Marcus by destroying herself. She said, very calmly, "I appreciate you being honest with me, Patricia. I will think about what you have said." Patricia smiled with relief and finished her tea and left. Lily called David Reyes before Patricia's car was out of the driveway. She told him everything Patricia had said. She told him she had not recorded the conversation because she had not known it was coming. David told her that was fine. He told her to write down every word she could remember while it was fresh and date the note and email it to him within the hour. He said the visit was very telling. He said it meant Marcus was nervous. A nervous man, David said, makes mistakes. He was right. On day 5 after her arrest, David called with the first real break. He had connected with a forensic accountant named Susan Park, who had spent 20 years doing financial crime investigation. Susan had reviewed the documents Lily had photographed in Marcus's office, and she had found something. The transfers out of the line of credit had not gone to any account associated with Lily. Every single transfer had gone to 3 accounts. One was registered to a company called Fortis Holdings. One was registered to an entity called Blue Ridge Consulting, and one was a personal account belonging to Glenn Forsyth. Susan had also found that Fortis Holdings and Blue Ridge Consulting were shell companies. Both had been incorporated just over 2 years ago, and one of the directors listed for Fortis Holdings was Patricia. Marcus's mother was on the shell company. Lily sat in David's office and let that sink in. This was not just Marcus. This was not just one bad man making desperate choices. This was organized. This had been planned. And Patricia had come to her kitchen and looked her in the eye and asked her to be the sacrifice while the whole family walked away clean. She thought about 9 years. She thought about Caleb. She thought about every time she had felt slightly uneasy and talked herself out of it. She thought about the note, L. She did not cry in David's office. She thought she might, but she did not. She just sat very straight and said, "What do we do now?" David said they were going to do 3 things. First, they were going to take the evidence they had to the detective assigned to her case and request a formal meeting. Second, they were going to file for a protective legal separation so that Lily could not be held responsible for any further financial actions taken in her name. Third, David had contacted a colleague who handled civil litigation, because what had been done to Lily was not just a criminal matter, but also a civil one. He told her this was going to take time. He told her to be patient. He told her that the best revenge, in situations like this, was a clean record and a judgment in her favor. She went home, she made dinner. She helped Caleb with his science project. She called Dana that night and told her everything. Dana cried. Lily did not. She was past the crying part now. Marcus was in his office most of that evening. At around 9 o'clock, he came to find her and asked if she wanted to watch something together. She said she was tired and went to bed. She lay in the dark and thought about the meeting David was going to request with the detective. She thought about Susan's financial report. She thought about the shell companies. She thought about the fact that she had spent 9 years building a life with someone who had spent at least 2 of those years building a system to frame her. She did not sleep well. The meeting with the detective happened on a Thursday. David was with her. Susan Park had prepared a 15-page summary document. They walked the detective, a quiet woman named Inspector Gail Harris, through the transfer records, the shell company structures, the connection to Patricia, and the handwritten note. Inspector Harris read the note twice. Then she looked at Lily and said, "When did you discover this?" Lily told her. Inspector Harris said, "And you put it back?" Lily said yes. Inspector Harris looked at David. Something in her expression had shifted. She said she was going to need time to review the summary and would be in touch. 2 days later, she was back in touch. She had reviewed the records. She had pulled the transfer documentation independently through a subpoena. The transfers lined up exactly with what Susan had found. She had also found something new. The signature on the original account authorization had been sent to a handwriting expert, and the expert had confirmed what Lily had known from the moment she saw it. The signature was a forgery, consistent with someone copying Lily's signature from a sample. The specific characteristic Lily had pointed out, the curve of the capital L, was the detail the expert had flagged as the clearest evidence of replication. Inspector Harris told David that the investigation was being formally redirected. Lily was no longer a suspect. She was a witness. Lily received that news sitting in her car outside a grocery store because she had been trying to carry on with ordinary life. She sat in that parking lot for a long time after the call ended. She felt the weight of the past 2 weeks shift, not disappear. It did not disappear, but shift into something she could carry differently. She had not told Marcus any of this. She had not told anyone outside of Dana and David and Susan. Marcus still thought she was scared and compliant and waiting for him to fix things. He had no idea what she had found in his office. He had no idea about the meetings with David and Inspector Harris. He had no idea that the frame he had so carefully constructed around her was now, quietly and methodically, being dismantled. She drove home. She made a grocery list for the week. She was ordinary. She was invisible. She was preparing. It was Dana who pointed out the next thread that needed pulling. Dana had been going through the personal financial records Lily had shared with her, the household accounts that Lily managed on her own side, and she had found something that Lily had missed. Over the past 3 years, there had been a pattern of small withdrawals from their joint savings, never large enough to be alarming on its own, amounts between $200 and $500 occurring every few weeks. Dana had added them up. Over 3 years, those withdrawals totaled just over $22,000. Lily looked at the spreadsheet Dana sent her and felt the familiar cold clarity settle in again. She had never made those withdrawals. She did not use that account for cash. She used it for automatic bill payments. She had never noticed the withdrawals because they were small and spaced out, and she had trusted Marcus's access to the account. He had been quietly draining their personal savings for 3 years. She added this to the file. She sent it to David. He added it to the civil litigation case that his colleague was building. The next thing that happened was something Lily had not expected. It came from inside Marcus's own circle. Glenn Forsyth called her. She almost did not answer. His number was in her phone from years of company events where she had been introduced to his wife and sent gift baskets and played the role of the supportive wife. She stared at his name on her screen for a long moment, and then she answered. Glenn's voice was tight. He said he was sorry for what she was going through. He said he needed her to know that the complaint he had filed had been based on documents Marcus had given him that indicated Lily had been the one moving money. He said he had believed the documents at the time. He said he was now not so sure. Lily said nothing. She let him talk. Glenn said he had his own lawyer looking into things and that what his lawyer had found was not good. He said Marcus had apparently told him one story and told other people a different story, and the numbers did not add up in any version. He said he had lost money in this too. Lily said, "I know, Glenn. I have seen the transfer records. There was a long silence on the phone. Glenn said, you have documentation. Lily said, yes. Glenn said, I think we should talk to the same people. She told him to call David Reyes. She gave him the number. She hung up. She sat for a moment and thought about the fact that the first domino had just tipped. Glenn Forsythe, the man who had filed the complaint against her, was now going to cooperate with the investigation of the man who had set them both up. She called Dana and told her. Dana said something that made Lily laugh for the first time in 2 weeks. She said, you know what the best thing about building a frame is? It has corners, and corners have edges, and edges cut the person who built it if they are not careful. Marcus came home at 6 that evening. He was relaxed in a way that told her he had no idea anything had changed. He asked how her day had been. She said fine. He said they should take Caleb to the lake that weekend, like they used to. She said that sounded nice. She sat across the dinner table from the man who had forged her signature, drained her savings, and arranged for her to be arrested. She passed him the salad bowl. She told Caleb to eat his vegetables. She poured herself a glass of water. She was the most dangerous she had ever been in her life, and she looked completely ordinary. David called the next morning with news. Inspector Harris had executed a search warrant on Marcus's office at the company location. They had found additional documentation. The original account setup papers, including a copy of the signature page for the business line of credit with what appeared to be a tracing template attached to it, the kind you would use to copy someone's handwriting. They had also found a second phone, a prepaid phone tucked in the back of a locked drawer. The prepaid phone contained text messages between Marcus and a number that turned out to belong to a man named Rick Delmer, who had a prior conviction for document forgery. That was the forger. Marcus had hired someone to copy her signature. David said, Lily, it is over for him. He just does not know it yet. She asked what happened next. David said Inspector Harris was ready to move. She had enough. She was going to request a warrant for Marcus's arrest. It would likely happen within the next 48 hours. 48 hours. Lily thought about telling Marcus. The part of her that had loved him for 9 years, the part that had looked at him across a kitchen table 1,000 times and felt safe, that part wanted to give him a chance to come forward himself. To confess. To take responsibility without being dragged to it. But she thought about Patricia sitting in her kitchen. She thought about the note. She thought about the tracing template. She thought about $240,000 and $22,000 more. She thought about Caleb, who would be affected by all of this regardless, but who deserved a mother who had not been broken by the shame of a crime she did not commit. She said nothing to Marcus. She asked if she could take Caleb to Dana's for the weekend. Marcus said of course. He seemed pleased that she was going to see her sister. He kissed her on the cheek at the door. She drove 4 hours to Dana's house with her son in the back seat, asking questions about why they were going to Aunt Dana's on a Thursday. She told him it was a surprise. He accepted that because he was 8 and because his mother's voice was steady. On Friday morning, David called. The warrant had been executed. Marcus had been arrested at the company office at 7 that morning. Patricia had been brought in for questioning in connection with the shell companies. Glenn Forsythe had provided a formal statement. Rick Delmer, the forger, had already agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for consideration on his own charges. Lily sat in Dana's kitchen with a mug of coffee and heard all of this. Dana was across the table watching her with careful eyes. Caleb was in the backyard chasing Dana's dog. David said, your name is clear. Formally, a statement is being prepared, and we are going to pursue the civil case aggressively. Between the fraud, the forged signature, the unauthorized account use, and the personal savings withdrawals, you have a strong case. She thanked him. She put the phone down. Dana reached across the table and put her hand over Lily's. Lily looked out at her son in the backyard. He was laughing at something the dog had done. He had no idea. She was going to have to find words for this, not today, but soon. She was going to have to find a way to be his mother through all of it. She was going to have to be the steady one. She had been the steady one this whole time. She had been steady when she found the note. Steady when Patricia came to her kitchen. Steady across the dinner table for 2 weeks. steady in David's office and in the police station and in the grocery store parking lot when the world shifted. She had not screamed, she had not confronted, she had not fallen apart in a way that would Ave given them any ammunition. She had gathered every piece of evidence she could find and placed it methodically into the hands of people who knew how to use it. That was her revenge, not a scene, not a speech. Just the truth, properly documented, delivered to the right people at the right time. In the weeks that followed, the story moved through its consequences the way these things always do. Slowly at first, and then all at once. Marcus was charged with financial fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. Patricia was charged with conspiracy in connection with the shell company structure. Rick Delmer, the forger, was charged with his role in the signature fraud. Glenn Forsythe was not charged, as investigators concluded he had been genuinely deceived by Marcus about Lily's supposed involvement. The local news picked up the story. Lily did not speak to anyone from the press. She gave one formal statement through David's office and let the legal process do its work. She did not want to perform her pain for strangers. She had already performed it long enough for people who should have been protecting her. 3 people from her life called her during that period, who she had not expected to hear from. The first was Marcus's brother, a quiet man named Thomas who had always been friendly to her in a subdued way. Thomas called to say he was sorry. Not to defend his family, not to ask anything of her, just to say that what had happened was wrong and that he was sorry she had been put through it. She thanked him and meant it. The second call was from a woman named Andrea who had been part of the couple's circle she and Marcus had socialized with for years. Andrea had always been slightly warmer than the others, and when she called, her voice had a kind of searching quality, like she was trying to recalibrate what she had known and what she had not known. She asked if Lily was okay. Lily said she was getting there. Andrea said she would like to have coffee if Lily ever wanted that. Lily said maybe someday. The third call was from Patricia. It came about 3 weeks after the arrests. Patricia's number on her phone made Lily's chest tighten in a way she had not expected. She let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 2 minutes long, and it said many things that amounted to a request that Lily speak to the prosecutor on Marcus's behalf regarding the severity of the charges. Lily listened to the voicemail twice, then she blocked the number. She did not respond, she did not send a message through anyone. She simply removed Patricia's access to her attention permanently. That was a boundary. It did not require explanation. It did not require anger. It was simply a door quietly closed. The civil case moved forward over the following months. David's colleague, a meticulous woman named Lauren Marsh, pursued the case through documentation and financial tracing. The shell companies were dissolved by court order and their remaining assets were frozen. The joint savings withdrawals were fully documented. The business account fraud was recorded in detail. When the civil judgment came through, it was in Lily's favor for a total amount that included the fraudulent transfers she had been implicated in, the personal savings withdrawals, and additional damages. The number was not small. She did not feel triumph when she heard it. She felt relief, which is different. Triumph has noise in it. Relief is quiet. Relief is what you feel when something heavy is put down after you have been carrying it for a long time. She and Caleb moved, not far, far enough. She found a house in a town she had always liked, a smaller house than the one she had left, with a yard that Caleb immediately claimed for soccer and a kitchen that had good light in the afternoons. Dana helped her move. Andrea helped her paint the living room. Thomas sent a housewarming gift, a good quality set of kitchen knives, which made her smile for a reason that was complicated and also perfectly simple. She started working again. She went back to accounting work, starting part-time and building from there. The woman who had spent 9 years trusting someone else to handle the money discovered that she was actually very good with numbers, which was something she had known once and had let herself forget. Caleb adjusted with the resilience of children, which is both beautiful and a little heartbreaking to watch. He asked questions at the appropriate times. She answered them as honestly as she could for his age. She did not speak badly of his father. She let the facts do that work when the time came. Marcus pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a structured repayment agreement and a suspended sentence with probation. He avoided prison. That outcome did not satisfy everyone who heard the story, and honestly, it did not fully satisfy Lily either. But she had not built her case for the satisfaction of seeing him in a cell. She had built it so that her name was clean. So the records showed what had happened and who had done it. So that Caleb could grow up knowing that his mother had not broken, had not lied, had not hidden, had not been what someone tried to make her look like. Patricia received a suspended sentence as well, with probation and community service. Lily heard this through David. She had no reaction to share because she had nothing left to feel about Patricia. The door was closed. It stayed closed. There are things Lily knows now that she did not know before. She knows that loyalty without discernment is a vulnerability, not a virtue. She knows that a person can be both loving and observant. That trusting someone does not require handing them every access point to your life. That the people who ask you to be quiet when the truth is inconvenient are the people who need the truth most. She knows that she was not naive because she was stupid. She was naive because she was kind, and because kindness, in the wrong relationship, gets mistaken for permission. She knows now when to hold her ground. She knows what her signature looks like, and she reads every document she signs. She knows that her sister is the kind of person you build your real life around. She knows that an 8-year-old boy doing homework at the kitchen table while his mother makes dinner is actually everything. Not a consolation, everything. There was a morning, about 7 months after the arrest, when she was sitting in the kitchen of the new house with the good afternoon light, drinking coffee before Caleb woke up. She was not thinking about Marcus. She was not thinking about the trial. She was not thinking about Patricia, or the note, or the police station, or the forged signature, or any of it. She was just sitting in her kitchen, quietly, fully herself. That moment, that ordinary Thursday morning with the coffee going cold, was the one she comes back to when someone asks her how she is doing now. She says she is okay. She says it and means it without the caveat she used to add. The small apology she used to attach to being okay, as if being okay required permission. She is okay, she is more than okay. She just took a long and brutal road to get there. And she took every step of it on her own 2 feet. If Lily's story hit you somewhere deep, I want to know. Tell me in the comments, was there a moment where you would have cracked? Was there a moment where she got it right? And if you have ever been the person in the room who was trusting someone who was counting on that trust against you, share that if you want. Because this channel exists for exactly that. The stories no one tells you are the ones that change you most. See you in the next one.